I also, politically and as an historian, I'd been very long wedded to the idea that, you know, the age of the West could not possibly last forever. You know, nations and cultures rise and fall. So I had an essentially dynamic view of history, and I never had a kind of defensive view of my own country, my own continent, you know, my own civilization as somehow superior and would always be at the top and so on. And I think, to be quite frank with you, that's been very unusual amongst Western people. And you can see this in America now. And so I approached it with, I suppose, as a result of the combination of these things, of great open-mindedness. And then I set about the research in a lot of different ways. You know, I was an academic, I've been a journalist, mainly a columnist, but a journalist. So I used all these skills to try and find out. So, for example, I interviewed a lot of Chinese scholars, which was most useful for me, because I learned so much from them. Sometimes, you know, I mean, I'm someone who does not speak Chinese. I've got a bit of Chinese, but I haven't got Chinese because I started my studies so late. So I knew, Chinese friends said to me, don't try it because it's not going to be worth it. Just concentrate on you doing your book. But this is, I think, a big problem for me. And I recognize it and feel suitably modest about this problem. But I got so much from these conversations I had. But also I read hugely in all sorts of different ways, you know, the key books you need to read and understand, but they had to be in English, and newspapers and, you know, from around all over the place. I was, you know, I was what you call a magpie, you know, a bird that's always pinching things from all over the place, whatever they can pick up. It was very controversial because it went against the conventional wisdom in the West. But I'm glad to say that it was very well reviewed. So it wasn't denounced or dismissed. It was engaged with. A lot of people obviously disagreed with it, but they respected, you know, the quality and seriousness of the argument, and you can't really wish for more than that. And I'm glad, you know, it's very important for me. I never thought, oh, it'll be published in Chinese. It never occurred to me that perhaps it would be, but it was. And I was, you know, it was very moving for me to, you know, to be drawn into a quite different and close relationship with China and the Chinese as a result of the book. I think at the time, although there was immense interest and many offers to publish the book, I think that it wasn't quite where China was at. You know, the particular problem was the title. The Chinese strongly objected to the title When China Rules the World, which is a very un-Chinese title, because actually the Chinese don't think like that. But also, I think the other reason was because it was like a bit ahead of its time, even for the Chinese, you know, because it was already thinking, well, China isn't just an economic power, it's going to be a fully fledged power, it's going to be political, cultural, military, ethical, moral power, and so on. And, you know, it was about the rise of China and all the forms that this would take. And that, at the time, was not the sort of really the way that China was thinking. But soon it was. I mean, from 2012, it became the way China was thinking as well.